Hi there, my name is Memo, this is my channel Houseplanty Goodness, and essentially it's a place where I like to geek out, hopefully with you, about my big passion, which is tropical houseplants. You might be able to see some of them around me. Now today's topic is slightly different than the usual topics that I talk about, so it's not going to be me focusing on one plant specifically, but this is going to be more what I do in terms of making sure that my plants are ready for the winter months. Especially here in the UK, which is where I'm based, it tends to get a lot darker, a lot more grey. The grey clouds roll in around kind of mid-September time, and they are truly here until about May, June, if we're lucky, and it doesn't go for longer. So these are the things that I've learned over the years in terms of what has worked in my condition, in my care. Hopefully this might be something that you can take some information away from, but obviously, as I say in most of my videos, each one of you is unique and different, and your growing condition and your plants within your growing conditions are different than mine. But hopefully this might be of use for some of you. Now, what I tend to do more so in the winter is obviously making sure that I am pulling back on the watering for a lot of my plants, because obviously in the summer months it's a lot warmer. There's more humidity generally in the summer months because you obviously don't have things like heaters going on, at least here in the UK. I know in the States and slightly warmer locations, I'm originally from Greece myself, I know that even in the summer it can be quite dry because people have got air cons going all the time, and the temperature might not be as high as it would be here, where most people, including myself, do not have air conditioning units, and we've only got open windows and fans to cool us down, which is great fun in itself. But yeah, just making sure that you're reducing back that watering in the winter months, because the plants aren't getting as much light. They are probably not getting as much constant heat as they would be, and thus they will utilize less of that water. They will transpire less of that water through their leaves and everything else. So just making sure that you're pulling back on that watering, because this is the riskiest time of the year for plants that have been doing really well to suddenly get root rot. And I have done a different video about root rot and the fact that it isn't the watering that causes the root rot, but it's something entirely different. I do urge you to check that out on my channel as well. But just make sure that you're being very cognizant on how often you're watering your plants. And one of the things that I have heard time and time again, and it's not something that I'm always able to put into practice because I'm a hoverer and an overcarer and probably a lot of the times an overwaterer as well, but benign neglect is a wonderful thing. Some of the best plants in people's collections that I've seen that grow exceptionally well is because they don't hover over them, they don't overwater them. There's less damage that can be done to a plant when it's underwatered than when it's overwatered. I know there are exceptions to this rule, things like the prayer plants, calathea, and also things like ferns, so where they tend to want to be remaining constantly moist. But with that being said, the majority of plants that most people have in their environment can go for a bit longer on the drier side than on the wetter side. The other thing to bear in mind during the winter months, and I know there's a lot of people, and I'm surprised actually, because a lot of people, there's a lot of video and a lot of information that goes out in the summer months because of people being aware more of pests and pest management. But actually I found it doesn't matter whether or not it's winter or summer, it's a different level of pest pressure. Yes, when it gets really, really cool, you might not see as many pests because they can't survive in those temperatures, but actually most people's houses don't get that cold. And sometimes, and this is the kind of double-edged sword here when we were talking about the watering a moment ago, when it comes to slightly underwatering your plants in the winter, things like spider mites, for instance, tend to thrive a bit more on the drier plants rather than the wetter plants, and the less humidity as well. So it's potentially a different type of pest that you want to be looking at. And let me show you, I think I've got some, give me a sec and I will show you. So one of the things that I swear by, especially in the winter months, is things like these satchels, because these satchels are essentially predatory mites, and you just hang them on the plant. And this isn't for a heavy infestation, this is kind of almost preemptive and almost preventative as well to a certain point, or maybe even a very light infestation of spider mites. And these are different types of mites, to the red spider mites, which is the pests that we get on most plants that eat the spider mites. So, but they don't cause any other problems. So these I swear by, especially now in the winter months. When the summer rolls on, I'll get a batch of these and put them on the plants, again, preemptively. And the same thing happens in the winter. I will get a batch of these and put them on the plants in order to avoid getting things like spider mites in the winter. Whilst we're on the topic of pests, I would highly encourage you to have a look at getting something like a jeweler's loupe. And essentially, this is just a fancy way of saying this is a magnifying glass, essentially, and there is, hopefully I'll put that on, the battery's a bit gone on this one. I don't think it's going to be able to see. Maybe you might be able to see there in the corner, but essentially this also has a battery inside of it, and there's a little tiny LED light that flashes, and then it means that you can see pests that are much smaller, much easier by just kind of using the magnifying glass. It doesn't cost that much. I don't remember how much I got. This was either £5 or £10 on Amazon. I think there's a link down below in the description. Do check it out, and you'll be able to find something similar to what I've got here. And I swear by it, especially in the winter months. Circling back to a topic that I just briefly touched on earlier on, and that is the point on humidity. During the winter months, there's radiators, there's household heating that's going on, which generally what that means is it dries out the air a lot more than it would have potentially been in the summer. Obviously, we talked about the exception that being aircon in warmer countries in the summer, that will also dry out the air around the plants. But in the winter, specifically, the heating will dry things out. So I do highly suggest you do something to address humidity with a lot of the plants, especially humidity loving plants specifically that have done really, really well in the summer, not just because of the light, but also because of the higher humidity levels due to those summer months. So investing in something like, and I know this could be a big ask for some of you, something like a humidifier. I use what a lot of other people use, which is a Levoit one, and I've had good experiences with that, but you don't have to go for that. You can go for something a bit cheaper. I've got a big collection. I needed something strong, and I needed something that I didn't have to fill in all the time. That one has a very substantial tank, so I use that quite happily, and yeah, had some great results. I have to be entirely honest, I've not used that for nearly a year now because the conservatory does stay very, very humid. I think even now with the radiators on, I think I'm hovering between 70 and 80% humidity, possibly a bit too much humidity, at least for the conservatory, but I do try to stay on top of that as much as I possibly can. I'll give you an indication of how humid this room can get. I've progressed from pretty much retiring my humidifier, again because it's so humid in here, to running a dehumidifier in this room to bring down the humidity levels below 90. Because if I leave it without anything else, it would be around 90. But this is just my environment. For most people, when they're growing and they have even a big collection within a household situation, something like a humidifier really will work. The other thing to remember is keep your temperatures high. So if you've got plants right next to windows, even if they are double glazed windows, they will still get a bit of a cold coming off those windows. So just make sure that maybe you pull them back ever so slightly. And just to make things even more tricky is make sure that your plants are getting enough light in the winter months. Again, talking about that cloud up above, you would be surprised where you're sitting there going, but it's in the same location, it's getting the same light level that it was before. Yes, but light level is only one part of the equation when you're looking at the light that your plant needs in order to essentially live its best life and photosynthesize optimally. The other thing that most people forget is hours of light, so the duration of that light that the plant gets. So for instance, I'm going to give you an example. A plant that might have been getting bright indirect light, and they might be getting about an hour's worth of bright light during the summer months, might go down to half the time of bright indirect light and maybe no, or maybe only 5 or 10 minutes of bright light. That plant is getting less light. It's the volume of light. It's not just the level of light. You need to be considering both of those things. So it might just mean that some plants that are more sensitive to light and they need slightly higher light levels to survive and thrive, move them slightly close to the window. Obviously not too close because you've got the issue of the cold. It's balancing these things out. And I think that's what I wanted to talk about when it came to light. We talked about humidity, we talked about warmth, we talked about watering. And yeah, I think that's everything to kind of bear in mind. Obviously, pests we talked about as well. Those are going to be the big things. And at the end of the day, if you take one thing away from this video is if you manage to, and this is something that not a lot of people talk about, if you just manage to get your plants to survive winter and not thrive, you're still doing a good job. Even if some of them perish in the winter, people that, like myself and other people who have been growing indoor plants for a long period of time, this is the time of the year where you will probably lose a couple of plants. It doesn't, like, you can do all the right things, but some plants just don't do well in the winter. And again, for some people, that's a learning opportunity within itself. It might be something that you're sitting there going, I've put all my time and energy in this plant. Do I want to try growing it again and go through another winter and see if it will survive? Or do I maybe say, you know what, this plant in my care, in my conditions, probably isn't the right one for me, and then maybe move on to a different type of plant to have within your home. And that's completely fine as well. I think a lot of people don't talk about that enough. We all lose plants. It doesn't matter how well or how long you've been doing something like caring for plants, you will ultimately lose plants along the way, and try not to get too down on yourself. This does happen. Take the learning that you can from that experience and apply it to the rest of your plants. That's all I can say. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here soon. If you've got any questions and comments as usual, do drop them down below. And yeah, I truly, truly hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.